Beats is the new movie directed by Brian Welsh. It's adapted from a stage play by Kieran Hurley, who also wrote the screenplay. And it's set in 1994 at what is kind of the end of rave culture. And I should say from the very beginning that partly because of the age I am and partly because of who I am, I never had anything to do with rave culture at all. So we're in one of those circumstances in which the movie's going to have to explain the world of that to me, although there is a weird connection which I'll get to in a bit. So the story is two teenagers who have been friends forever and ever. One of them is called Jono and is kind of the more sensible of the two. The other is Spanner, who's a sort of live wire. And their lives are about to move in different directions. One of them has a mother who is now married to a policeman, and they have different paths for their, that are sort of set out for them. And he's moving away, and it looks like this is going to be, it's very much that kind of coming of age thing. It's that one last summer in which everything changed. And what happens is, he says, his friend says, look, we have to do something together. And the thing that I want to do together is let's go to a rave together, because there is this rave that is happening. And they've been listening to this music and they've been listening to it on the radio. But suddenly it appears that there is this kind of almost Camelot-like rave that will be like the end of an era, the climax of their friendship, the summation of everything that's gone so far. We're going to play you a clip. It's got ellipsis in it because the language is frank. And it's like playing a clip from Trainspotting. It's got gaps in it.
Rave to the grave, the biggest night of your life, Scotland. Revolt. Date to be announced here. Nowhere else but here. Very soon. Here's a homeboy, a hippie, and a funky rave.
Come on!
What's he on about? He's going out. Is that a party?
No, for you, wee man.
Hey, come back to us when your balls have dropped there.
Oh, come on, tell me.
What? Hey.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Wendy. What's happening tonight then, cuz?
Nothing, wee man. Just got a mind. Get a Chinese, watch telly.
We come with us.
What's your problem, you wee creep?
What happened to your face? Jesus, John. Sorry.
That was a clip lifted directly from the Puppet Master's childhood. And so what happens is, it's basically, on the one hand, it's a coming of age drama. It's a drama about, as I said, after this, nothing would ever be the same. On the other hand, it's a love story about two friends who are joined together despite, moving into different worlds, and despite their parents' animosity and the various troubles that they both have. They're joined together by their friendship and by their love of music. And I interviewed Brian Welsh, and he said it's about that. It's about that point when music and disobedience become the thing that actually sort of turn you into the person that you are. And it's also a very, very precise evocation of a time. And I know people who were involved in rave culture who say that actually it gets that stuff completely right. So two things to say. Firstly, the film it has this monochrome sensibility, except for there is a sequence in it in which it tries actually very successfully to get the viewer inside the head of somebody who is dancing to that music. And it does it really brilliantly. And it does it during a sequence which, to me, reminded me of some of the kind of hallucinatory visions of Ken Russell's Altered States, which I think is a really great film, because that thing about managing to put on screen the feeling of frenzy, a feeling of ecstasy, a feeling of kind of out-of-body experience. It's actually very hard to do, and I think Altered State's got it absolutely right, and there is a sequence in Beats that gets that absolutely right. It also, because it's the end of something, it has an edge of, that line in Withnell and I, when he says we're coming to the end of the 60s, the greatest decade is coming to an end, and we have significantly failed to paint it black. And it's that idea that the party is over. It's all happened. This is the end of it. And there is, along with the fun and all the other things that are going on, there is that sense of melancholia, which I really like. It's the astringent, the bitterness in the sweetness that makes it work. And the other thing that's interesting for me is that the film, it intertwines two things, the personal and the political. The personal story is the story of two friends who have been together and are now in a circumstance in which that friendship is going to be tested sorely. And yet, yet there is something that joins them. But it's also political because it's about the outlawing of rave culture. Now, the interesting point from my point of view for this is that it was the 1994 Criminal Justice Bill, then Criminal Justice Act, which was used to make raves illegal. And in the rubric of it, there is this phrase about the powers that will be given to shut down raves. And there is this really strange phrase that music, this is in the music, includes sounds wholly or predominantly characterized by the emission of a succession of repetitive beats. That's actually, that's kind of the definition of, okay, well, this is there for a rave, therefore we can shut it down. Oddly enough, also in that Criminal Justice Act of 1994 is an amendment to the Video Recordings Act, which was used to tighten up the standards under which videos could be supplied in the UK, and called very specifically for the BBFC to have special regard to a video's treatment of criminal behaviour, illegal drugs, violent behaviour or incidents, horrific behaviour or incidents, or human sexual activity, which was basically a kind of catch-all of saying there's a whole load of movies like Abel Ferrara's Bad Lieutenant that we're suddenly going to worry about on video in a way that we wouldn't have done before the criminal. So there was a very odd moment in which people who were horror fans, which is me, and I'd grown up with the Video Nasty Scare and the Obscene Publications Act, and the way in which that was used against video nasties, and then the way in which the Criminal Justice Act was used to tighten up the Video Recordings Act. And on the other hand, rave culture, which I had nothing to do with at all, but in that same piece of legislation is something which is trying to stamp it out. And it's weird because I've talked about this before about video games. To me, the way video games are treated sometimes is the way that video nasties were treated. And what the way in which I connect with the film is that as somebody who was a horror fan during that period, I make that connection with the fact that it's around the Criminal Justice Bill, the Criminal Justice Act. So it works really well because it's a personal drama. And it's a drama about music, which is not a music that I was ever part of, but watching the film has a sequence which makes me part of it and makes me understand it. And it has a sort of recent socio-political commentary, which has a personal thing for me because, weirdly enough, I'm a horror film fan. Although there aren't any horror films in it at all, it connects to that. So I thought it was a very ambitious and fascinating film, and it worked.